Another question on the fat loss video, accessory work and rep ranges. If I'm trying to lose body fat, should I omit all accessory work, and what is the optimal rep range to train in for fat loss? Good question. I would say no, you don't need to drop all of your accessory work, especially if you're training for hypertrophy and physique purposes, because those individual muscle groups that you've trained up to this point need to continue to be trained. And so, I'm assuming by accessory work, you mean, bicep curls, tricep extensions, things like that. You may drop some of it out. It depends on the nature of it. And a lot of this, again, has to do with rep ranges, more so than exercise selection. But here's the thing to remember when you're training for fat loss, especially if your carbs are either non-existent or really low. There's no point in doing really high volume or high rep range training when you're on low carbs or no carbs, because basically what you're trying to do, one of the things you're trying to do, let's say, again, going back to, you're doing 5 sets of 15 on an exercise with very short rest periods. One of the things that you're trying to do is shuttle glycogen into the cell, into the muscle cell, to expand its storage capacity. Okay, that's basically glycogen and water trying to expand the storage capacity of a muscle cell. That comes from that, that pump type training, bodybuilding type training. And that's only really works in the presence of carbohydrate. Okay. You have to have carbs in the system in order to shuttle that into the muscle cells to increase its storage capacity. Why would you want to increase storage capacity? Well, it can help with strength. It obviously helps with muscle size. Some people call it sarcoplasmic hypertrophy. That's debatable on how much that contributes to, actual force production or not. But in this context, what we're talking about is, trying to lose body fat and then on low carbs and doing a style of training that is designed to shuttle carbohydrate into the cell. You don't really need to do a lot of that type of training, maybe just a little bit. If you're on lower carbs, if you're on, a very low carb or no carbs, you probably don't need to do anything at all. And in that rep range, I would say keep all your reps between like 5 and 8. I'd cap your rep range at like 8 reps if you're dieting hard and on low carbs. Really anything over about 8 reps is not really doing much for you other than creating inflammation. 8 is kind of the top end of the strength range. It's got a little bit of that kind of metabolic effect of, increasing the little storage capacity or whatever, if to the extent that can be trained on low carbs at all. But other than that, I would probably keep all my work in the 5 to 8 rep range. I would do mostly the basics, your squats, your deadlifts, your pressing, with a few, depends on what you want to classify as accessory movements. If you're training for physique, you want to keep in a lot of your dumbbell work, your rows, your chins, your barbell curls, kind of the basic accessory work, I guess. You could probably eliminate the leg extensions, the cable crossovers, the high rep side delt raises, that sort of thing, that are strictly going to be done for higher reps and for that pump effect. You probably really don't need a lot of those. If you're on a hard diet, you probably get by with just more of the barbell work and dumbbell work and kind of the basics in that 5 to 8 rep range. And I would keep your volume up. I wouldn't necessarily drop your volume because you want to maintain muscle size, but you would want to do it with an approach that's lower in reps but more sets. Things like, even doing like 6 sets of 6 on an exercise, something like that wouldn't be a bad idea. So you're still getting a fairly high volume on an exercise, but you're not getting it with like 4 sets of 15 or something like that. It's just not going to be all that productive.